It's like we have the mystery reveal with Sunday morning. Who's down there?
Oh yeah, it's T.
Hey. When we said RJB, we meant T.
No, RJ will be here in a little bit. I do love this like lo-fi jazz Sunday morning thing to start things off. It always just puts me in a different mood with these Sunday shows. Like it's a very chill way to start. No, RJ will be here in a little bit. We got a lot to talk about with him. That's gonna be fun. But I figure we get things started. Actually, I wanted to ask you guys while we had a second because you're our resident deadheads. Like, what the fuck's going on with this bracket? Did you see the latest Elite Eight results? It's a little bit out of control, man.
Althea. How did Althea end up in there? It's the mayor effect. I'm calling it the mayor effect.
Althea's losing at least to Darkstar, but
bots.
That's what it is. I thought the estimated defeat was more
egregious. Yes.
Yeah, it was wild. I did not see that coming. Is that like with the older? So like I like it, right, from my perspective. And that's all I can do is from my perspective. But like, is that song not as popular with like older heads and stuff?
No, Mutron Jareri with the Mutron. But isn't the other one losing? How is the other one losing?
Yeah, the Scarlet Begon. Yeah, we might end up with a Scarlet Fire final.
I mean, against Scarlet, I can see why the other one would lose as far as a popularity contest. Oh yeah, I mean the other one's a darker, grittier Bobby song,
but it has one of the most iconic lines. The bus come by and I got on how many shirts and everything is like played off of that. The bus came by, I mean,
smiling on a cloudy day. I mean, yeah, it's got great lines in it, and just the bass line drop from Phil is epic going into it, right? Like,
and rhythmically, it's awesome too with that triplet groove.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally checks every box. I don't know how you couldn't possibly love it.
That's the only song that is credited to Weir and Kreutzmann. They're the only two writing credits on that.
Well, Kreutzmann definitely. I mean, I know like drummers don't usually get credit, but that one's it's fairly obvious. I mean, come on. Most of the song is just that triplet pattern, and then Bobby singing on it.
Right, it might even. I guess.
I mean, right. Scarlet's like a Jerry anthem song, so I mean,
the Heart of Gold band, I guess, resonates, and it's about a girl, so it's all the horny dudes thinking about the hippie chick who's gonna,
Yeah, it's just that song. So I mean, I can see that beating it. That falls more in line than some of the other crap that's happened, like.
The song that spawned 1,000 granny dresses.
Yeah, the Althea thing is crazy to me, though. Althea even making it into this far is kind of crazy.
I mean, I guess the silver lining, or it all works out, is that it's going to end up being Eyes versus Darkstar, which is the 1 and 2 seed. So even if the rest, I don't know. I'm going to say that we were off. I feel like y'all were off. Like the people voting, but I think at least we'll get the matchup that I really wanted to see how Darkstar and Eyes do against each other.
Looking at that last round, that Althea, it's almost like watching the tournament. When it's basketball, you get those crazy upsets, and you get like some seed that shouldn't be there, and then it actually wins in that. And by the end, everything shakes out to normal. Like you could have these crazy outsiders that get into the bottom set, like the end of the bracket, but it still shakes out to be like Eyes and Darkstar. It still shakes out to be like the top 2 seat, what you expect. So hopefully.
So Final Four is tonight and the championship's Monday. Is that how we're working it?
Yeah, that's how we're working it. So
all right. So get on Twitter. Maybe last time it's on Twitter.
Yeah, I think this will probably be the
it never made it to YouTube. Look at that. The Twitter folk won.
Well, maybe we'll do the championship over here. I don't know. We'll see.
All
right. So what everybody's here for, I'd like to introduce our next guest, the CEO of Osiris Media and Executive Director of Heritage Radio, Mr. RJB. Hey, RJ.
Oh my God. What an intro. Thank you.
I practiced it. I looked in the mirror this morning. How you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. Hanging in there. Been a pretty solid month so far. Solid music. We got great fish in Mexico, then got a great fish cover band last night, and it's been the last 2 nights and a lot of good stuff in between. How's everything with you? You've been busy.
Yeah, I've been on the road for a few days. I was in New York, and then I was up in Burlington for 2 nights, and came back yesterday so that I can go to the Harlem Globetrotters game with my son today at Wells Fargo Center. So
nice.
It's nonstop.
Love
but I
it.
really having me on. It's nice to see you guys. It's been a while.
Yeah,
Yes.
a little bit. I was thinking about it. We've had you on a couple of times, but it's been quite a bit. Actually, you were on the Wookiees, I think was the last thing. And I guess real quick, I'll give the announcement that the Wookiees are returning.
Yes.
424. I know. I'm very excited about it. All right. So I figured maybe we'd start with your new role and your new gig at Heritage. I don't know if Kev was just telling me some more about it. You wanna tell us all about it?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. And thanks, Kevin, for wanting to kind of plug it and all that. So yeah. So Heritage Radio Network, I refer to as HRN because a lot of people are like, Heritage? Is it related to the Heritage Foundation? And I'm like, no, not at all. It's related to a company called Heritage Foods, which is like a heritage pork producer. That's the guy who started it, started this company. So that's where the name came from. So no one should be confused that I'm working for the, Heritage Foundation. Anyway, it's been around for 15 years, and it's a food advocacy nonprofit. Started with like 2 chefs who were trying to just basically like have some dialogue about food. So they started a radio station, and in the back of Roberta's Pizza in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And as you guys might understand, like they just wanted to like bullshit with their friends about food. And, over 15 years, it turned into a nonprofit, and we have 30 or so podcasts about food that we produce every week. And
Wow.
it's pretty cool. Like the thing that I'm trying to do right now is there's a mission driven part of it, which is we do internships and fellowships where we educate young people. We're trying to get more people from diverse backgrounds, all that, and teach people how to do audio storytelling. So we teach them how to use mics, how to use Logic and Pro Tools, how to make podcasts, how to do storytelling. And it's really like the mission of the organization is to try to help get more young storytellers out there, whether they focus on food or some other thing they believe in. So it's really cool and fun and challenging. And, it's like now Osiris is my side gig, and now I have Reprise, which is a side gig of my side gig. And you guys know how it is. It's
you got a lot of gigs, man.
You guys all do, right? It's like we all got a lot. Like we all need more projects, right?
You got to scratch that itch and keep busy. I know.
Crazy. So thanks for letting me do that. Yeah, we're in the middle of a 15-year anniversary kind of campaign where we are asking people to donate to the organization and enter to win dinner for 2 and 2 show tickets in like one of 8 cities. So we got partners like my friend Peter, who runs, all the Brooklyn Bowls. He donated tickets in 4 cities. We have all these chefs who donated meals. So heritageradionetwork.org/15 is where all that is. But I was trying to like bring some music and food together, as my first kind of foray into getting out there. So really fun. So yeah, that's kind of the basics.
So you got Ardmore one there.
Yeah, I was talking to Chris from Ardmore, and he's like, you want to include Ardmore and Ripplewood? And I was like, of course, yes. It's really great to have all these amazing people who are like, hey, happy to help,
Go right around the corner from your house too, huh? Makes it kind of easy.
Yeah, it's really great. And on the Osiris side, we have, actually, I don't know if this is announced yet. We're going to be doing, I think, 2 things at Ardmore in March. There's 2 shows coming the week of March 20th. And I'm going to do on-stage interviews with artists before the shows. If you look at the schedule, you can probably figure that out. But we haven't announced it yet. So I'm still doing Osiris stuff with Ardmore. Anyway, I got a lot of shit going on, like you all, like we all do,
Yeah. No, it's cool. Great. Did the music stuff, was that something you brought into HRN, or had they ever done anything like that prior?
No, not really. I mean, I think it was all, I think in the early days, they had like, they basically tried to keep like a 24-hour internet radio thing going when they started. So I think they had like
that's
local.
Ambitious. Holy shit.
It's crazy. They had like local Brooklyn DJs. They had people creating music or curating music. But yeah, I brought the kind of music aspect in, and that's one of the things that the board liked about my background was like bringing in the Osiris experience. So it's good. It's a lot like we're doing some cross promo stuff between Osiris and HRN. So it's all complementary,
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's up with HF Pod? You're doing top 25 tours. Is that where
Yeah.
we're working now?
Yeah, it's really great. So we had, oh man, I gotta say, like, I don't, I've been doing HF Pod for 11 years now,
Wow.
which is insane. It's like, I mean, the fact that people still listen just still kind of blows me away. But we had, I think we like hit a new stride where we're trying to do these kind of series, like we did the 40 for 40 last year, and the top 25 tours we did 24, 23. We're doing 22 on Wednesday, and our fall 2018 episode, which was the 23rd ranked tour, that was our biggest episode we've done in 4 years.
Whoa,
Wow.
that's cool.
And I don't look that closely at the numbers anymore because we just do it because we love it, But I was like, oh shit, we're like onto something. We're trying to not. You guys know how it is, like talking about music. It's hard, and it's like kind of push yourself to do new things. And we're trying not to just go through shows and be like, and then they played this, and then they played this. We're trying to like,
Try different things.
yeah, just bring some like thematic stuff in and try to like sound smart, like we know what we're talking about. And
Well, I mean, I would say you guys definitely know what you talk about. Like you're talking about. That's one of the things, the ethos that I guess from the original days with you, but even the newer hosts, right, like Megan and John and everything. Like, there's you guys have established, I think, an expertness. Like, and that's not really a word, but like a professionalism and like an expert.
The expertise.
Yeah, the expertise. Thank you, Kevin. Not quite like what, but I really appreciate that about what you guys do. So whether you're talking about shows or tours or doing a draft, there is some level of ethos there, which I think elevates the content.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, and I think what's awesome about this is since the 10 years, like there's been so much fan generated content or fan projects, and like what you guys do is a compliment to what we do. Like we don't like, I'm asleep by the time the late night stuff happens.
Yeah.
Like post show, or like I just think it's like it's a good. There's so much good stuff happening in our community, and it's kind of amazing to think about. Like 10 years ago, everything was kind of different, but there wasn't like that much, right? It was like Fishnet and maybe some like in Fantasy Tour and like blogs, and now there's just there's video, there's audio, there's live stuff, there's fan arts flourishing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, the content world is blown up. I mean,
40 years in,
and you did pave the way for a lot of that, right? Like as somebody who came up in a later generation of creating content in this scene, I think there's a couple people like the blogs, right? Like with Mr. Minor and Memo and stuff. But then in the podcast and the produced content stuff, HF Pod was definitely one. I don't know if it was the first, but it was the first one I remember that kind of paved the way for that. So
yeah,
thank you. A lot to do with that.
I appreciate that. I will say Steve Olker, who did Type 2 Cast, which was kind of like the one Fish podcast that was running when we started. I reached out to him and was like, hey man, I just want you to know, like, we're starting this thing. Like, I'm not trying to like infringe on your territory, but we want to start something slightly different, because they kind of had the Fishnet kind of crew in there, and we were just like, no one knew who we were, so we were like, let's just try something different. And Steve Olker sent me a hard drive, like a huge hard drive filled with every show that he had compiled, every Fish show, cool. Because it was before we got like streaming, re-listen, whatever. He was like, here's the vault of every Fish show, so when you pull clips you can have them. And I was like, that's like a great community thing.
That's very cool.
I think it's cool that he did that, but I think it's also sweet that you did that. Like just like a cool stand-up thing. Like you didn't have to be like, hey, we're doing this. And I feel like, I don't know if people could do it nowadays because there's so much out there. Like I don't think that you could send out a memo to everybody like, hey, everybody, we're gonna add another one. But I think that's a very solid like stand-up move on your part to be like cognizant of that.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's super fun. And so with Osiris, we launched 6 years ago, and I spent like 4 years with it as my full-time job, and I
can't believe it's 6 years already.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And it's still like evolving in a lot of ways, and changing in a lot of ways. There's just like there's so much there's just like so much change like in content, like you guys know, like people, you got to have video, you got to have short clips, you got to like keep people engaged, and it's just so different than it was 10 years ago, which I guess is like an old person thing to say, but that's I definitely feel that.
Yeah, but it is
involved with it.
I mean, we have 4 people running social media and we still don't get it out on everything all the time, you know? Like we
Right,
split up the
right.
duties and it's still like a job to get things posted and try and do it consistently and everything. So it's yeah.
And reacting to things and like really trying to like be part of a conversation. Everything moves so fast, you know.
And also be fresh and not get like what you were talking about with you're not just doing the same stagnant, stale thing and like trying to do different things. And, also not just within yourself, but finding your lane within the cluttered, scene. But
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
thanks
I
for all
think
the
it works.
compliments. I appreciate it.
One of my favorite things when I tune in to HF Pod or the Osiris things is seeing a lot of the people I recognize from our chat in your chat. And I think what you were saying, we don't need to talk about podcasts and content the whole time, but what you're saying about how we complement each other, I really believe that. And I think that it's important to not just try to replicate the same shit over and over. It's like finding your strengths and stuff. And there's a lot of carryover. I see people that really appreciate us. And then also I see them commenting and their comments come up on the screen. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And it works well. If Fish fans have proven nothing else, it's their capacity to absorb and be passionate, right? They're not going to be like, oh, I had my fill for the day. I'm not going to do anything more with this band, right? Like, I think if it's good and there's a spot for it, I think, there's an audience for it. So I
Yeah,
want to transition. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing, which is that I saw, when I was at Burlington, I had so many people come up to me and talk to me about the podcast and about Osiris. But one of the guys who's watching now was at the show, Brian Tompkins, who came up and said, you know, like, thanks for everything. And he mentioned to me like exactly what we're talking about, like appreciates Wook Plus, he appreciates JSF Pod, like it's cool to see people out there who come to the shows and who are like, yes, that like this all like it's all good content, Ryan Storm stuff and our stuff and your stuff, and it's all very different, but works well,
Yeah, everybody seems to do what they do best. I do want to transition into Vermont
Yeah.
and Nectars, and so how do you think things went last night? I guess what happened the last 2 nights? Let's tell everybody for those if anyone who doesn't know, and then we could get into how it went and everything.
Yeah. Oh man, it was. So I guess I'll just go back quickly. So Tom and I, for the past year or so, had been talking about the fact that there's no right now. There's no Dark Star Orchestra for Fish. There's like a lot of
Yes.
amazing Fish tribute bands and a lot of Fish cover bands that are doing amazing work. And like Runaway Gin and Part of Me. I mean, there's so many to mention, right? But the idea of like could we recreate the experience, could we do that? So we talked to our friend Ed, who runs Nectars, and Matt, who works there, and they were like, yeah, let's do it, let's book 2 nights. So the idea was Kyle Kehoe, Scott Chaslin, Adrian Tramontano, and Chris DeAngelis would reprise 2 full Fish shows. And we had done maybe 3 Osiris events with those guys. I've done a bunch of stuff with Cal. He's a good friend of mine. But this was like, all right, should we do it? And everyone was so excited, including Nectars, to just try it, And it was I got to choose the shows, which is fun.
That must have been awesome. Was it tough? How hard was it to whittle it down to 2 shows?
Yeah, it was actually, and we ended up with the first night was a show that I did not originally flag because there's no recording of it, so it's like not a show that we've heard, but it's a it's a Nectar show that happened that nobody has the tapes from, so we were like, this is kind of cool, like good set list. And those guys learn, Pink Talking Fish is Cal's band. All these guys have grown up with Fish. Adrian is an insane drummer, but like, just knows Fish from being a fan. And they learned 2 full shows worth of material over 2 or 3 days. And yeah, I mean, when I would like talk to them on Thursday, they were rehearsing and trying to nail, changes in lizards. It's like, God, that's like these guys like took it very seriously. And Adrian got on the vacuum for each night. So we did Friday night was 313.89, and then last night was Sugarbush 716.94, and we streamed them through Volume, partner that has like they're wired into Nectar, so they just press a button and it goes live, and it worked out great. I think last night was sold out or very close to sold out. The first night was really full, probably 200 people in there. So like for a first foray, these guys all have other bands, so it's like, how many shows can we book this year that works for people's schedules? And after the show backstage the first night, we were basically everyone was like, let's book more shows immediately. This is like, and they had so much fun, and everyone there was just so happy. And I was talking to Greg from Section 119 yesterday, and he was like, I think a lot of people around the country are looking for like this kind of experience that's smaller and less expensive, but like recreates this experience. And I hadn't really thought about it like that, like from a real like product point of view, but that might be true, like pay $20 and see a fish experience. It's obviously not fish, but it's like super fun, and they put their own spin on it. So I'd say, like, without, probably said everything, but it's incredible.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're
it
pretty
was
high caliber musicians too, so it's not
it was
fish,
very
but
cool to watch. Like I watched the first night on the stream, which was also very cool to have a free stream, which we've talked about a lot, like going into some of these small, I mean, obviously Nectars is pretty well known, and like you said, it's wired. Like all they had to do was go in there and hit a button, which is even cooler because it was all set up for you. And I mean, I've shot in there and know the one shot by the main soundboard that you can hook up to, and that was the only one we used for when we did it. But you guys, the shots were great. I mean, for a free stream, it was really directed well, almost directed better than some of the fish shows on Live Fish that you see sometimes. Like it was shot really well. It was really fun. It kept you into like the feeling of being there with them. And to your point, they nailed it. Like I know Brian was just saying the vocal jam. I actually saw them play that first night and do the yam, and I was really impressed with how good they sounded and how good they nailed it and how much fun they were having with it. They didn't take it too seriously, but to your point, they learned the songs properly and did it a great service. Like it was a really cool thing. How did the streaming thing come about? Because I know you said Volume works with them already. Was that an easy thing to just kind of put together and decide to do?
Super easy. We just, I reached out, Ed and I, who, basically they do as many shows as they can from Nectars, and Ed and I just, sent them a note and we're like, hey, you guys want to stream these shows? And they were like, yeah. and I think we had more people watching the stream than anything we've done with Osiris in terms of like live podcasts and stuff. So I think it seems like it'll continue. I was thinking about that because there was a lot of chatter yesterday about the show from people who were streaming. I mean, we had, hundreds and hundreds of people watching it, which is amazing. And I feel like if it had just been a show where people were sending little clips and photos, like if we didn't have it streaming, I don't think like the chatter would have been the same, right? Like, and I don't know, man, maybe that's fish biscuits. Cause I mean, everyone's streaming live now, right? Like, maybe you can't do a live show without streaming it at this point.
I think it would be a bad move.
To me, my favorite. Kevin and I have talked about this though. It's a thing. Like I think it's not just good for bands, up and coming bands, because you can, obviously get people. I'm in LA and I'm watching a show in Vermont, right? Like I'd never have access to that otherwise. So it opens that up for people to see, and it shows you the venue, like how everybody knows Nectars. So like to actually see the inside of it and see that is cool. And I think that for bars, smaller venues, I think it's a win-win for the bands and the bars with this, for especially smaller bands trying to come up. It's great to stream their shows and stuff. It's awesome. It's a great outlet. And I think, you guys doing that and stuff, it really does open the door. And I think you're getting a bigger audience through that because it opens it up to let people across the country see it. So that's really cool to hear you say that and supporting that, because we've been trying to pitch that to some places out here and do that. It's awesome to hear. That's very cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, so and we're gonna do some. I think we're gonna do 2 nights in June in the Northeast, and then probably some more in September. So we're like, we're on our way to doing more reprise shows, and everyone's really stoked. And I was with Jason. I don't know if you guys know Jason Liggy. He does the lights for J-Rad. He's up in Burlington. Great dude. He was like, during the first set, he had said to me, he was like, you can tell they just became a band like during that jam, because they came out and it's like, okay, start off with You Enjoy Myself, really fucking hard. And then they like got to loosen up a little bit, and then it was just like the chemistry was great. It just all worked out really well. So super psyched.
Yeah, that's funny because I told these guys that I was like, they opened with a yam, so it was like you kind of like got thrown right into the fire. There was no kind of like warm up into Fish song. It was like do this right away, and I was like, for a first song, they kind of crushed it. So, and then from there you could kind of tell they were a little more relaxed and like, okay, we got through that. Like now we can do this, and kind of go with it. So that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
yeah, for
it
sure.
was still up. It is still up. I think I don't know how long it's up, if it's up forever, because they do have a bunch from past shows at Nectars, to your point, that are on there. But yeah, it's still free and it's still up. Go check it out. It's very
Yeah.
cool that it's free.
Yeah, if you go to volume.com/nectars, you can see night 1 right now. Night 2 will be up a little bit later today. So yeah, it's all, we're gonna share it all, and it's really fun. Really fun.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, and I don't
I
know,
love
what do you guys think about that theory about, like, I don't know, is there room enough for more fish tribute?
Definitely.
There's a lot out there.
My thought when it first thought is the comparison to Dark Star. Dark Star started after the Grateful Dead ceased to exist, so it's weird that it's redoing the full shows while the band is still creating new shows.
Yep.
Yeah, but
For sure.
I don't know that it's a bad thing though. I actually agree with that idea of like giving it, because Fish is only doing what, 40, 50 shows a year, and now they're doing these concentrated, like, just big weekends. So you have like what, in a year, maybe 10 hotspots, 8 hotspots that if you live near, you could spend a couple $100 and get. Like, I don't think that's gonna, quench my thirst for it. I love the idea. I hope that they play Ardmore next, and I have a feeling that that's gonna be on the list. But like, I would absolutely go. And you know what, I like the other Fish tribute bands, and I've seen a bunch of them, and I don't want to speak ill of them, but the idea of doing a DSO style where you get to hear the set list and take that time travel, and then especially with musicians of this caliber, right? Like, because let's be honest, not all tribute bands are created equal, right? There's some that are like Pink Talking Fish, for example, is a tribute that's at a very high caliber. There's other tributes you stumble upon that you're not sure you're going to get. I think this is awesome. I think there's definitely a market for it. Well, I mean, we'll see, but I'm definitely intrigued by it. I'm gonna try to catch him as much as I can.
Nice. Thanks, man. Yeah, we'll do a Philly show at some point this summer or early fall for sure, and hit some other. I think we'll stay around the Northeast, and just that's where all the guys are, and when they all
And
have
Fish
their own
hates the
projects.
Northeast this year, so like
right
now that's exactly right. You're solving a problem. Fish announced a weak ass summer tour, and then RJ comes in with his cape, and he's like, "Don't worry, guys, we got you
covered."
And in true Fish fashion, keep the East Coast biased, right? Let's stay on the don't come out here on the West and don't let us experience it. Keep it on the East. Just make sure you keep streaming the shows so we can watch them.
We'll be out there eventually, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like I don't think we'll ever do a show while Fish is on tour.
Yeah, it's tough.
Just because,
you can't do like the after parties or things. Just like you don't want to catch it right after you catch the real thing.
Yeah.
It's an off-season thing.
Exactly. So yeah, so it's super fun, and yeah, something that's been in the works for a while. But as you guys know from doing like various projects, it's sort of like a year ago, I wouldn't have predicted that this would be the next thing that seems to like be a promising direction. And you just keep trying stuff, and with Osiris, I've tried, I don't know, failed probably 50 times and had like 3 or 4 things work really well. And that's kind of like a pretty good ratio, but you got to get used to like most things not working. You know what I mean?
You don't need to give specifics, but I am curious, just like from like-minded, do you have ideas floating around right now that you're like toiling with internally that like we might be talking to you in a year and like they might be coming to fruition, or are you kind of staying with what you currently have out and about? Like, is that a constant turnover in your mind and how you're trying to create things?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like the evolution I was talking about earlier, video, live. Like, you can't just put out a podcast anymore that's like just a conversational thing with fans. Like, it's too crowded. It's hard to break through. It's hard to market. So I'm thinking about like how do we keep evolving with like the way content's evolving. We do have 2 podcasts coming out soon. One with this guy Jonathan Shank, who's a music executive.
Is this HRN or Osiris?
No, this is Osiris.
Okay.
Yeah, so he has a new show where he's going to be interviewing people like Randy Jackson and Robbie Krieger and a bunch of people. He's been in the music industry for a long time. So we're going to do new podcasts that kind of push in slightly new directions. But yeah, I mean, the live thing is I love doing live shows, and I feel like getting people together in person, both on the HRN and Osiris side, is like really important to me. So just keep trying to figure out how to like bring people together,
Yeah, I mean, that's a very cool part of it, the whole community thing and the in-person thing. Definitely. I know we don't have a ton of time. I wanted to talk about Mexico. Were you down in Mexico? I'm confused. You need to clarify things. What were these pictures of you chilling with Trey? When did that happen, and how fucking incredible was it? Because I'm not gonna lie, I rarely get like jealous of people, but chilling on a boat next to Trey seemed like a dream. Like that must have been like, incredible.
It was ridiculous. Yeah, it was uh, February of 2022, so 2 years ago.
Okay.
And
was
I'm
it
not
as incredible as I imagine it was in my mind?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, we were on a boat with I was with Tom and 4 other people, and the last day we like met up with Trey because Tom and Trey were going to go write songs. So we had like a day, where we hung out for several hours, and I'm not sure why Tom decided like 2 years later to post pictures about it because no one had posted anything about it before. But yeah, it was cool. I got to like walk down the beach with Trey and have a conversation about Mexico and about like, like, I mean, just ridiculous. And then, yeah, playing us rough cuts of songs from his phone and laughing. And, he kept sort of like referring to me as like, because I think I was the only one besides Tom who had met him before on the boat. And he was, anytime he mentioned fish, he'd be like, you know how it is. And I'm like, well, no, not really. But like, I'm happy to be the guy who you think is like actually, part of the band or whatever.
Got your pulse, got your fingers on the pulse there.
Yeah. He, as you guys know, he's like such a nice and attentive person, like talks to each person individually, really like asks questions and listens to people. He's a really great person to be around, great energy, so enthusiastic about everything. It's really like, he's an impressive dude. It's hard to not be intimidated. Like I've done a lot of interviews and conversations with him at this point, but it's just like he's a force. He's got like that kind of magnetism,
aura to him.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. But the whole boat thing, just being out on a huge sailboat that this guy Scott Gray was driving or sailing or whatever. I didn't do shit. I just sat there and like drink beers and listen to music. I was involved. I was like doing the Bluetooth music on my phone. That was like my job.
So what were you playing? What were you playing for Trey? I'm assuming
that would be the most intimidating thing ever. Holy shit.
There was so much of Tom and Trey both like playing stuff on their phone that we didn't have a lot. We talked about stuff that we were all listening to, but we didn't actually play music because there was so much like Tom and Trey laughing and playing little clips, and it's like there's like, it's hard to get a word in edgewise, when those guys are together. It was really fun. I think it was like maybe 9 months before that Tom was like, there's this trip coming up, you have to come. And I'm like, okay. So it's a big trip to get down there.
So I guess that was the trip maybe from like Oblivion, Evolve, and like that, right? That was a couple years ago.
Yep. Yeah. This was right around the same time. Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
It was a memorable trip for sure.
So
Totally
what
ridiculous.
do you make of what I'm seeing as we're the push towards evil fish? We're getting less fish jams. Mexico is a little sludgy, little dirty.
Yeah, it's amazing. Brian's theory that Brian was in Mexico and I wasn't, and Brian, I was really annoyed that he came up with this before I did, but his theory about like this is like kind of like a prep for the sphere, I thought was like a really good theory. Like, because production is going to be so complicated that I wonder if like those long jams are just like what they're going to do at the sphere so that the light and effects show can kind of like exist. So it's not like song, because I think that's a good theory, because otherwise I don't know how they suddenly like are now shifting toward like, like you said, like industrial, dirty, dark, evil fish, which everyone loves and is so great. Just it was really like surprising, right?
It is. It's an interesting theory because so many people, including some of us on this show, have talked about them up in the corner above me, have talked about them playing shorter songs or timed out to the graphics or to the experience that you're watching at the sphere, and how would they adjust to doing that. I like that flip side theory of saying, well, actually, what they're going to do is jam and let the other stuff kind of
Vamp.
placate to them or like play around what they're doing. And I think that, I mean, who knows what they have up their sleeve? I know they've probably been planning it for years. This isn't like we're going to play the Sphere, let's figure it out. It's like we figured it out and let's go play the Sphere type thing. So I'm super excited to go check it out. Like I can't wait to see how it turns out, but I love that theory.
That's all I got. Are you guys going?
No,
I'll be there for at least one. I'm gonna go for one, probably two, but not the whole run.
Yeah, I think this year I'm only catching Monday Green. I still have a baby, but I'm you think they're gonna webcast it? They have to, right? I feel like part of the economic equation with these things, like in order for, especially with fish, to make it fully viable, is they have to that has to be a huge source of revenue for them. Like I can't imagine them not doing the webcast anymore.
Yeah,
Like for that.
I was wondering if it's something that is not like feasible in some way, technologically or whatever.
Well, I mean, you probably want to get the full experience, but even if it's like audio, I just want to hear the shows,
Yeah,
an audio only stream would be something. But to your point, RJ, everybody's phone videos that you see, it's always like trying to like tilt way up to see the top of the ceiling and stuff. I don't know how you capture that in a webcast, like necessarily, or how the cameras are set up in there. So who knows? But
I wouldn't be shocked if there was no stream, but I do feel like it would be good for like you said, Tim, like it would make a lot of sense.
I think they're
feel
set
like-
up really well, coming off of Gamehenge and then having arguably the best Mexico that they've had and two of the best jams that I mean, I think they're top 5 jams of 4.0 with the Wave of Hope and the Chalk Dust and the production value in the Sphere. I think this is has potential to be a phenomenal outing, and it just feels like, and they don't know us anything, but there's part of me that's like, share that with your fan base and your community, right? Like make it available, make it accessible. I feel like it would not go over well to hold that behind, you know what I mean? Like if they didn't webcast it. Now, granted, if they don't, that's up to them, right? Like they don't know us shit, but like, I don't know. I feel like there would be a lot of upset fans if they didn't.
But if they don't do
make
it,
that
Tim,
available.
think about in 10 years having reprise these shows as sort of the only like reconnection of these shows. It'd be even better.
So you can't have tapers, right? You're not gonna have freaking mic towers in the Sphere.
No.
So like the only release you're getting of this is an official fish release. So,
But it probably would be like live fish releases are now. The close up of Trey playing, fingers moving, back up, show the band. They probably wouldn't try to incorporate it. They'd run it as a straight. This is what you always get with fish. Live
and
fish.
I'm fine with that. I'm honestly like, yes, I want to experience it. I think the big ass Sphere is gonna be incredible. But I'm so intrigued and interested as what they're doing musically now and the evolution from like Gamehenge and then that Chalk Dust. I want to see this next run, like
Yeah.
Tim, what if they did audio only for the streaming of the shows because they couldn't video it, but then they had their own production team in there that then came out later with like a Fish at the Sphere experience and didn't necessarily play the full shows, but showed you like
4 DVDs.
right, yeah, or did every show and showed you that, or did a produced version of them would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think like seeing like the chatter on social media about like ticket prices and like I have friends who are like longtime fish fans who are like they're like trying to like gouge fans, and I'm like I just don't. I think like it's so complicated. There's economic factors and like everything's more expensive, and I truly think that fish does what's best for their fans as much as they can always. Like I don't think they ever make a decision that's like, oh yeah, maybe we should like not stream so that more people buy tickets. Like I just don't think that they ever think like that. Like I think they do what they can to make us happy as much as possible.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like slightly naive, but I do kind of believe that.
I believe that too. Yeah.
But
Because if you don't believe that though, then it just makes everything else more miserable and makes you more pissed off. So you kind of have
right.
Without knowing otherwise, I rather just believe that.
Yeah, I've always felt that they use Ticketmaster as a shield, and that's what they get their percent for. Because why don't you go the Robert Smith route then? No charity platinum, no platinum.
But that's the ticket thing. I agree with your premise for ticket sales, and that's the business side of it. But I think the other decisions about like where to tour and whether they webcast and those types of things, I think they do what's in the best interest of the fans when it's feasible, right? I agree with you, Kev. I think the tickets, that is the business side of it. They need to make money, right? Like it's not a charity. And they use Ticketmaster as their cover, but I don't know.
Yeah.
The web stream though, the thing is that financially makes sense from a business standpoint and for your fan base. So that's like a win-win, you know?
Yeah.
And I will say, just like, I think we all choose to believe what we were saying because otherwise it would just be annoying. But I think, like, through conversations I've had with Trey and with people who work with Fish, like they know that they wouldn't be where they are without the fan base, like I think that's very clear. Yeah. I think that's really clear to them too. And I think it's interesting because you get Ticketmaster and Live Nation involved, and you get Red Light Management and Core and Capshaw, and you have these like big, huge players in the industry. And I think they just try to achieve a balance, and but it does, like, I don't know if you guys read Bob Lefsett's, but like he's kind of like, some of his stuff is just, he's kind of like a wacky old man, but the way he talks about ticket prices, he's like, in America, like everyone's happy to spend $100 on dinner, but like $100 ticket, and everyone like loses their minds, and it's just sort of like there is something to that I feel is like, it's like, well, if, like, Goose tickets are $90. This is like ridiculous, but I'll go spend like $500 on a PlayStation or whatever. I mean, it just like, I don't know. I feel like
but the thing is, if I'm all in for $100, cool. But when I check out and it's 150, that's when you feel,
fair.
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair.
And
also, you also know you're paying for, like Tim and I talk about, because you're usually using secondary market anyway, because it's hard to get tickets these days. And so going through that, you usually choose to find, where you want to sit and how you want to deal with it and what you want to do and pay the extra money for that experience. So, yes, to your point, it is harder, but you are like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And just like going to a nice dinner, right? Like if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go to a nice dinner. I'm going to do this right. So like if you're going to do the show, sometimes you just have to do that way, and it sucks. But
I'm going to Cracker Barrel.
To your point, you also get to like feed people into the cheaper, the smaller bars and go into that live music scene again. So
yeah.
I love the bars. You're going to have to get over to the Harlem Globetrotters there. You want to throw anything out before?
No, I got time if you guys want to keep chatting. I want to go. I got like 10.
All ready to kick you out.
No. I think I did say like I'm trying to get, like, I got like 10 minutes if you guys want to keep chatting, or I'll
that's fantastic.
I do think part of the ticket conversation, and I agree with that premise 100%, is like the misvaluing of like the live music and stuff. But like, there's also a part of it that's my disease. And when I say mine, I'm saying like representative of like collectively, is like, I'm not going to see one Fish show this year, right? Well, like my personal situation aside with like the baby, but like in general, like on a normal year, I'm trying to get, 8 tickets, 10 tickets, 15 shows, and that's just one band. And then there's other bands. And so like, not that that's an excuse to make it lower, but I think that's why it hurts more, is because like when a tour's announced, you see like, the checkout, it's like, fuck, that's a big nut to be dropping on live music.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't know if you guys are, how into the Disco Biscuits you guys are, but Mark is a friend. I mean, I know all those guys. Mark's my neighbor, and it's interesting to watch them over the last year or so, like really kind of take off again. And I think they're, and I have a bunch of friends who saw them in 03, 02, 04, back in the day, and now we're going back to them. And partially it's like they have a bunch of new songs and new energy and new creativity, but I think it's also like you can see them for less money than you get going to you're not paying $150
Mark
to
said
see
that.
The Biscuits. Yeah.
Mark said that he was aware and they were doing that, and the bubble of positivity. I love what they're doing. They're having their best year ever. They're having their best year ever, 24 years in or 26 years in.
And they don't have to charge $100 per ticket, they're, and like, it's still great for everybody. And I think the fans are super grateful. So there is like, I don't know, there's a good feedback loop if you keep things, keep things simple.
8x10 uses a ticketing service called Dice, and it's all in, which your pricing is, it's like $19.62 with the fees.
That app, Kev, is great for small bars, because that's what Taper's Choice uses out here for all their small bar shows. That is a great service for those venues and stuff. I agree. That thing is it's really working for. And I think the catch though is like with the Disco Biscuits, like you want to stay in that zone because it's a price point zone, right? Because it's good for the fans, it's good for everybody. But then to your point earlier, RJ, like Goose, who had this meteoric rise, especially through COVID from playing so much, and the fan base not really being ready for that jump, like we always talk about the jump from small bars to bigger venues to arenas. Once you kind of cross that next threshold, that ticket price hit is big. And a lot of your fans are like, especially back in the day, that was the point where bands sold out, right? You're like, oh shit, the Chili Peppers are selling out now. They're playing these big venues. It's kind of that same feeling these days. It's just not called that anymore because you're more buying in than selling out, like Kevin. I like
to say cashing in these days.
Right. But it's still that feeling of like, oh shit, this band kind of is bigger than us now. Like, what happened to me getting to see them in these smaller venues paying $25 for a ticket? Now I got to pay $100 and deal with all these other noobs coming in and seeing my band. So there's the, that kind of feeling too.
Right.
But it's the growth of the industry. That's what happens.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting that I don't know. I don't remember ever looking at ticket prices when I was younger. Like I just
to make sure I was getting worked enough hours that week to cover the dead money orders at the end of the week.
Right, exactly. You'd send in like the fish, you'd send in a money order for at least like fish tickets by mail. And that was, I don't know. It's just interesting that there's so much scrutiny on ticket prices and fees. And like everyone's like, very aware of the differences between, but also the venues, like, there's 6 different seating tiers in a pavilion. And I'm like, it used to just be pavilion.
Shit out of it. Yeah. I don't know why they make it so complicated.
It used to just be GA, maybe some reserve thrown in there somewhere.
Right. Exactly.
If you were willing to sleep outside for 4 days, you could be in the first 5 rows.
Yeah.
You had to earn that shit. Yeah, I'm always surprised when the backlash, and I don't know why I am, because it's been consistent for years now. But like tickets go on sale, and then you see like socials blow up with everybody bitching about the prices. I was like, oh, I didn't, and I know everybody's at different economic station, and like it's complicated and everything. But like within the perspective of like other artists and other, music scenes, I've not ever felt like Fish or the jam scene was egregious with it or like way more blown up or expensive. If anything, I felt like they've done a really good job holding it against inflation and everything else, right? Because those tours are not the same cost as they were in 2019. Like they're just not. And like my grocery store's double, but my fish tickets aren't double. So I don't know. I'm always a little bit shocked that like you see that huge backlash every time tickets go on sale.
Yep. That's a great point.
There was no question there. I'm just proud. Yeah.
I think it's a good point. I totally agree. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And yeah, I think maybe, I don't know. I think the festival might be my only fish this summer. What about you?
Does Osiris have plans for the festival?
We are working on something. We will do something. We don't know exactly what it'll look like, but yeah, we will be there and we will do something. Yeah.
That's about how far we've gotten in our planning too. Like,
good. All right.
We have no idea what it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it in the lead up for sure.
I think the most exciting thing about it, aside from the festival and everything, is that everyone, for me personally, everyone that I know is going to be at one show, right? Like it's usually like, oh, at this show I have this crew, and at that show I run into this person. Like, oh, I saw RJ at Merriweather that one time, but like, it's like literally everyone is. It feels like, at least it's like it's the gathering of all the fans from everywhere. It has that communal, very little communal feel to it. It's very exciting.
It's a good location.
It's going to be sweaty and swampy.
Yeah. But like, so everyone can kind of get there from, not everyone, but like it's, I don't know. I just drove yesterday from Burlington.
It's a lot easier than Maine or Swamp, Florida. I feel like your locations, it's not that bad.
I'm about an hour and 15 minutes away from there.
Same. A little more.
Yeah.
Tim, you're like a little more probably, right?
Yeah, a little bit more, but not too much, like 2 hours maybe.
So we're all, that's
so you don't have to forget everybody else in the country. It's very accessible.
It's a long ass way. It's a long ass way for me. I wish
be a long way for you. Yeah, right, man. That seems like that seems like, I think Tom was telling me like that was the best Halloween experience. Just
it was so fun.
Really?
Like fun, easy, great, like beautiful.
The acoustic set, except they ran out of donuts, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, to be able to do an acoustic set in the morning in the end of October is outside.
Pretty awesome.
pretty awesome. Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
nice. That was cool.
So we'll see each other at Monogreen, at least some of us.
Yeah, even if we
Definitely.
don't end up doing anything like full collaboration, I do hope to run into you. I always like seeing you at shows.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun to hang. I love that about shows. It's great to just meet people and catch up.
Do you get stopped a lot? You're pretty recognizable in the face of like a million things. Like,
yeah,
just like people constantly be like, "Yo, RJ, what's up?"
Yep. It's pretty great. I
cool,
like
though,
it.
right?
I had
People are
somebody
like-
come up to me. I had somebody come up to me in the bathroom in Atlantic City. I mean, I was just washing my hands, but he's like, "Aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll talk to you outside in a minute." I was like,
Hey, you
Sometimes
gotta
people,
you gotta get him when you got him, right? You're too busy otherwise, Kev. That's the only time he's got you. cornered
yeah,
in the
exactly.
urinal.
Some people like apologize. They're like, sorry to bother you. I'm like, you're not like, no, I'm not like. I love talking to people. There's one guy who owns a restaurant in Shelburne, Vermont, who came to the show the other night, and he like said he'd been listening to HF Pod since the beginning, and like that it's like one of the highlights of his week because he works in the kitchen and just makes food all day and listens. And like hearing that, when we're doing this for the passion of it, and knowing that people are actually listening and enjoying, it's always like it makes it worthwhile, So I'm always like, you're not bothering me, like, I don't know why you listen to the podcast, but I really appreciate it.
I know we always say
I've
that
had
too. It's
twice
shocking that-
Yeah.
I've twice
shocking
have
that
had.
people listen.
Kev, go. Say what
Oh,
you're
I was
gonna
gonna
say.
Two separate times I've had a younger woman walk up to me and say, "My boyfriend loves Wook Plus. Can you take a picture with him?" The guy didn't even ask me. They had their girlfriend ask me. And I'm like, "Of course." I was like, "I love this." I was like, "You're just feeding my ego here." It's
Yep. It's really, but it's great to hear because we do put in a lot of time to try to make this content that we all make, and it's nice to hear that people are enjoying it.
Yeah, so I mean the thank yous are all the payment we get right now mostly. So it's
Yeah.
like, they don't get old. Like
Exactly.
it doesn't get
Exactly.
old.
Exactly.
thank you, Mass Man.
Yeah, no,
Thank you guys for having me.
I really appreciate you coming on. It's a really nice time with your kid at Harlem Globetrotters. That's gonna
Thanks.
be fun.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
fun.
it's
It's
gonna be
good. It's like 60 degrees today. It's like a nice
Beautiful day out.
day. So
Love the Harlem Globetrotters. I took my kids once, and my youngest was part of the choir that sang in halftime.
Oh, really?
Which was fun. Yeah,
Nice.
it was pretty neat.
I think our kid, my son, loves basketball and loves the Sixers and all that, but I don't think he has any idea what to expect. I think it's gonna like blow his
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
So
Stunt basketball.
yeah,
That was
exactly.
fun.
Thank you guys. It was really great to talk to you all.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you,
really
RJ.
appreciate it.
Let's
And
do it again
everybody,
at some
we'll
point.
see you on Tuesday
Definitely.
for Wook Club, and go check out HRN and Osiris and everywhere you can find RJ. And thanks. We'll see you next time. Later.
See y'all.